Will light weights make me small? Will heavy weights make me big? We're gonna dive deep and we're gonna start right now. First, I think it's important for us to create some sense of context around loading. Now, what would be considered heavy weights? Typically, that's going to be anything that increases strength, speed, or absolute strength. So this is gonna be 80% or higher relative to our 1 rep max. So let's use the example of my best deadlift of all time is 705 pounds. So if I looked at it and I said, you know what? I want to use heavy weight. I want to increase my strength speed. I want to increase my absolute strength. I want to focus on training with weights that are going to be 80% or higher. So for me personally, I would work with 565 pounds or more because that's that baseline of 80%. So if we're training in the 60% rep range, we're going to be focusing more on dynamic strength, more on even speed strength. And if we want to do a lot of reps, it's going to lead to large amounts of possibly muscular damage and a lot of mechanical tension. And that can lead to sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which is going to get us a nice big pump. Using these two examples, we can get a pretty good understanding around comprehension and intensity. So the next step is geared around performance goals. Like, do you want to get stronger? Meaning, do you want to increase your 1 rep max? Do we want to be more hypertrophic? Meaning, do we want to gain more freaking muscular size? Like, can you click both the like and subscribe button on this video? I mean, we've got a lot of cool content and this video is pretty sick, so it's gonna help you become a freak. Just saying. In comes Brad Schoenfeld, and I know we've talked about him as a researcher in a few of our other videos. And so what he's done is he's actually put together a large group of researchers to look at the 1 rep max of the elbow flexors and of the leg press. And so they take that research and now they created a really, really weird experiment that helps us identify what intensities are best for muscular size and muscular strength. So the researchers had 30 individuals. They would train one limb. So let's say they're doing elbow flexion, so a bicep curl, at 20% of their tested 1 rep max. So when everything was starting, they tested their 1 rep max on the leg press and with their elbow flexors. And so let's say one side would use 20% for a curl. Let's just pretend that my right arm would do 3 sets of 30. My contralateral limb, so my other side, would be selected based off those 30 individuals to either have 40, 60, or 80% of my 1 rep max. The cool part here is that they also matched volume. So if I did 3 sets of 30 for 20% of my intensity here, if I'm doing 80%, I would still match that volume of my 1 rep max here at that 80% load or at my 60% load or at 40%, depending on the group that was chosen. Same thing occurred with that leg press. And what was also interesting is that inside of this, they were measuring cross-sectional area, so basically muscle size, and also strength. They wanted to see who gained strength in what percentage range. And this training was done with the 30 individuals twice a week. My only thing is, what are only training twice a week? The training volume was matched. The 20% limb would do 3 sets to failure. So then they would look at that and say how much volume was done on that 3 sets to failure, and then that other limb would match that same amount of volume with that new percentage. And so the test points were, beforehand, they would test the 1 rep max, cross-sectional area of the muscle, and then 6 weeks into the experiment, the 1 rep max was tested again, as well as the cross-sectional area. And then at the end of the experiment of 12 weeks, that was tested all over again, that 1 rep max, and the cross-sectional area of the muscle. So let's pretend that my 1 rep max on elbow flexion is going to be, for a hammer curl, 100 pounds. Okay, so I'm gonna do 3 sets to failure. I'm gonna do this twice a week. I'm gonna go 3 sets to failure on my right arm. This is gonna be 20% of my 1 rep max. Now, let's pretend that I'm in the 60% group. So they put me, the contralateral limb is gonna be 60%. So that means that for 60%, I'm gonna drop this. I did 3 sets to failure. Let's say I did 60 total reps. Now I have to do 60 total reps of elbow flexion with a 60-pound dumbbell. And so what we end up testing then is at the 6-week point and the 12-week point, we're gonna see what's the cross-sectional size or the cross-sectional area of my muscle inside my bicep, maybe my brachialis, my brachioradialis. I don't know if they tested all of those specific groups, but maybe let's just say our bicep. And then we're gonna retest that 1 rep max. So if 100 pounds is my max in my right arm, and I train with 20%, what's my 1 rep max? And if I'm using 60% in my left arm, and it's 100 pounds of my 1 rep max, what ends up being my 1 rep max after training for 6 weeks and 12 weeks? So the 80% rep range for cross-sectional comparison showed a 20% increase versus the 20% intensity rep range that only showed a 9% increase in cross-sectional area. And for elbow flexors, that increase in the 80% was a 25% increase in cross-sectional area versus an 11% increase in that cross-sectional area for elbow flexors. And that was a comparison at the end of the 12 weeks of the experiment. So the 2 best or the most optimal intensities were the 60% range and the 80% range. Both showed a nice increase in cross-sectional area and in the 1 rep max. But when we're using resistance-based training, all intensities showed a positive increase across all boards. It's just 60 and 80% were the most optimal for increasing strength and cross-sectional area. Cool. What the f does this bull mean? A weird study with one limb training one way, the other limb training another way, done over the span of 12 weeks, training twice a week with 3 different testing periods. So what this tells us is that if we're training for size, we can actually train for increased muscular cross-sectional area by using percentages that are 40 and 60%. That even means if you're training in a public gym and you feel pathetic because you're only using 40% of your max, deep down inside, you're gonna know you still have those gains. So this is really important if you're traveling, you're in season, or maybe you're an injured athlete. Now we know for certain that there's actually still ways to increase strength and size. I love getting a pump on the leg press. This study is actually extremely freaking cool. It's well thought out, well executed, and it gives coaches a very good perspective when they can go into their planning and they can see, hey, we have a lagging muscle group or a lagging issue here or an injured player here. We're in season during this time, and it enables us to be confident that we won't get pathetically weak if we're training in the 40 or 60% intensity range. It also helps us see that the leg press is really, really good at getting the vastus lateralis really swole. And not that lateralis, my favorite song from Tool. So what's the answer? Should we always use heavy weights, or is it okay to go with the lighter weights as well? Light weights are for the weak. So there's clear benefits to training with lighter weight and with heavier weight. Both tend to increase cross-sectional area, both tend to increase size, both tend to increase strength as well. But what we see is that 40 and 60% are really, really good for increasing size and strength, but they're not as optimal as that 80% range. So that gives us a little bit of intuition where we can go, when we're traveling, when we're in season, we can use that lighter weight and we aren't gonna have diminished gains. So there is a benefit to training lighter and to training heavier. And don't forget, if you guys need some sense of muscular gain and you're looking for greater size from that cross-sectional area, and again, stronger muscles, make sure you download our app, Peak Strength, by heading over to peakstrength.app for a free 7 days. And if you want to improve your brain gains, check out our podcast, the Masters of Sport podcast, because remember, freaks, if you guys want to become champions, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.